Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Attachment Point. This is the roundtable edition. As usual, we go around the horn. My co-host, as always, is Brett Fulmer. Brett, welcome.
Good morning, guys.
Good to see you again. And our guest on this Saturday to chat everything insurance and non-insurance is our good friend Garrett White. Garrett?
Howdy, everybody. How are you guys doing?
Awesome.
Good. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Awesome to have you on. Since the last time that you and I have chatted, you've made a big move, and you've transitioned to one of the few carriers I think that I have an incredible amount of respect for. I feel like they do so many things the right way, and that's USAA. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I'll kind of go in reverse. So Blue Lime itself was a lot of fun, and I can't say anything bad about my time there one bit, but it got to a point where I think my vision for what we wanted to do and kind of our board of directors' visions just didn't align. And so at that point, it was like, what's next? What do I want to do? And really try to figure out, quickly what that possibly could be like. And so I looked at going back on a carrier side, working for a big brokerage, and kind of everything in between there, and even maybe changing gears and looking at the health side of the house or other areas that I didn't necessarily have a big skill set in, but would add something to kind of my toolbox. So interviewed a ton and actually turned down a few different offers, which I was happy about, and thankfully USAA and I connected and actually had this rec open for like 6 months, couldn't find anybody. And I just so happened to apply in an airport. And
in the airport?
I was traveling for interviews. I mean, that was kind of, I basically gave my notice in April at Blue Lime and interviewed for, 3 months aggressively. And so I was flying all over, interviewing almost every week. And I just like, hey, doing the tactical job hunting approach, whereas like it's kind of like sales. You go through and you're looking at your searches, and then you're applying to all those top jobs that fit that criteria. And so,
well, what did you learn about that process? Over at Insurance Nerds, we spend so much time on career development and preparing for interviews. Going through the interview process can actually be very grueling. What did you learn? Were there any surprises?
Yeah, so I actually interviewed for a carrier in the E&S space, and they had an all-day, 8-hour interview. And it was the first time that I've ever done an 8-hour all-day interview. And so I had no idea how to prep for that, and that was the biggest challenge. I think for me is just having that conversation and really knowing, what you bring to an organization and being able to articulate that against what the actual role that they're hiring for. And so if that's not a fit, you're going to know in that first interview, or at least in the initial conversations.
Yeah.
So that's, my big advice for anybody in that market is use that first interview and those first conversations to really just see if where you are and what skill sets you have and where you want to go really allow you to match with that, potential career.
I feel like that 8-hour one was like strategically trying to break you down. Like they had like 8 hours to see if they could peel back the layers. What's going on with this guy? Imagine you like stuck in a room with a cup of water, bringing different people.
It was just like I sat with basically every C-level person at that company, just hour. And then I was like, oh my God, like by the time you're done, I was like drenched in sweat underneath my suit. You're just ready to go home.
Let's flip the roles here. Do you think that method of investigating and interviewing a potential candidate, I'm assuming they're only going to do it that long if it's a pretty high level position, but do you think that's a fair way of assessing a candidate's potential for that kind of position?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I would have done that same style. I think that you get a lot out of it. And from, my perspective is like, all right, I got to see how claims work. I saw processing, ops, finance, underwriting. leadership, inside of that. You really get to see the functions and kind of
Yeah.
how that role interfaces with those functions. And so I think if you're coming into something and it's a strategy job and you don't know how all those things work, or if you could work with those people, that's really what it is. If you could gel with those folks, it's a fit. If not, it's not a fit.
You're going to spend a lot of time there. So 8 hours to see where you're going to spend, 50 hours a week potentially is going to be a good investment,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the longest I've been in an interview is probably 4 hours. And I remember it was in the afternoon, so I remember sitting in rush hour traffic, heading back home, and just being like absolutely exhausted. Like I got home and it's like I just want to eat dinner and I want to sit in front of the TV and I don't want to do anything because my mind is just mush. And I wonder if there is a way to prepare for something like that, because it's like Navy SEAL style interviewing.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I reached out to a bunch of people that I know, outside of insurance that are pretty high level professional folks, and just to kind of get their take on how to prep for it. And, the big thing for me was it was publicly traded. So I was able to pull all the financials and kind of know the numbers and loss ratio. And the challenge for me was understanding what their current strategy model was and kind of how that aligned with what the current market's doing or what it's going to do in 5 years.
Yep. So
and just to,
sorry, go ahead, Brett. Go ahead.
Kind of give props to USAA too. When I worked at a small independent brokerage, when I found out people had USAA as one of those, just like, oh, I'm out. You can't do anything here. They're good. They're in good hands.
Yeah, probably the highest retention rate in the industry. A lot of loyalty there.
That's cool.
Garrett, what is your position?
So I am working in the USA agency, which is their owned brokerage. And I'm the director over commercial lines there. So basically I'm responsible for all the business that comes in for USA members that we place, not with USA, which is all of it.
Okay. So USA is not doing commercial. You're helping those customers get commercial placements.
That's cool.
Yeah. Okay. That's very cool. Very cool. That's like right up your alley.
Oh yeah. It was a perfect fit. That's why it was hilarious. Is like in an airport and I'm like, wait a second, USA does commercial. And you're reading the posting and I was like, oh, this is amazing. Yeah. I was like, how did this not come up in my search?
Yeah.
And then, literally the recruiter's calling me the next day. Hey, we've been looking for 6 months. And I'm like, oh man, I should have applied earlier.
Well, how did you find it? Was it a recruiter?
No, I was, I think I found it on Glassdoor. That's where I found it. But literally I think I had 5 different sites that I was going to with different search filters and parameters just to like, all right, I know that this like Indeed is good for this segment. Insurance Jobs is good for this other segment. And then LinkedIn's great for some stuff. And then Glassdoor is obviously a good tool. So
that's an interesting strategy for anyone that's listening, because everyone's probably all doing the same thing and they're probably all very laser focused on that one channel. And you went to multiple channels and really diversified out your search dragnet.
Yeah, I went Indeed because I was looking for a job recently too, and I was getting offered spots that weren't a great fit. So I'm in the process of standing up my own thing. Indeed, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and then recruiters, just newsletters, signing up, reaching out to them was the process I used. And yeah, the closest I got was 2 hours talking to a local small business broker owner. That was kind of fun though. I felt a little bit trapped. I remember at one point like being thirsty, having to use the restroom, but you also don't want to like break the conversation. So just kind of hang in there for the long haul.
Oh, that happened to me. That absolutely happened. Yeah. I had an interview. It was I don't know. I think it was one of the final ones, and it was the person that was going to be my boss. Yeah. And it was all morning that we were talking, and I could tell we were coming towards the end, and I had to go to the bathroom so badly, and it was just like, but it was close to the end, but it never quite got there, and then finally I was just like, I was squirming in my seat. Finally, I said, I got to go to the bathroom, and he was just like, oh, okay. we can end it here.
No
Like,
problem.
I should have said that 10 minutes ago. And I did end up getting the job, so it didn't
That's
harm
cool.
me at all. Didn't harm me. So, Garrett, congratulations.
Yep. Thank you.
Awesome news. Looking forward to hearing more about it. Will you be arm wrestling with Rob Galbraith at all?
Possibly. He works in a different location, but the funny part is his wife actually works kind of in our business unit. So I've got to meet her. She'll be kind of a key component, I think, in the overall strategy. So at least I'll get an interface with a Galbraith, you know?
Good. Awesome stuff. Brett, what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Just figuring out how to stand something up. But actually, I might spin it back to you because I know you got a big topic coming up for us. But the Form D that coverage I wrote about you, we were joking around before the podcast when you work hard to create content, you work hard to stay relevant, help. And then it's another level when people create content about you. And then Nick had a funny story about, the article itself.
While I'm talking about it, Brett, could you see if you could pull up the coverager?
Yeah. Absolutely.
The little blog part, because Garrett probably hasn't seen it yet, and I'll share it. We'll share your screen and we'll throw it up there.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So that was like a surprise. I'm sitting watching the Red Sox game last night, and it's like baseball, so kind of moving slowly. I'm scrolling through like, Coverager. I love Coverager. Click it, and I'm scrolling through, and I see a little. Now it's on my phone, and they have a little font. So I got the phone right up near my face, and I'm scrolling through, and I see something about flood and how someone raised some money. Of course, my antenna went up. Like, who's doing that? Kind of interesting, right? Potential competitor. And I go through it, and it's just like, I'm reading it. I'm like, this sounds just like us. Oh my God. And then I see our logo. I'm like, oh, it is us. Like, that's awesome. And the folks at Coverager do such a good job just doing research. I mean, they're just like top-notch analysts and researchers. So here it is.
Nice.
Yeah, I saw that was it. I saw Broomfield based, and I didn't see the rethought, and it was just like Broomfield. But that's like where we are. And then because the font is so small on your phone, I'm kind of had the phone right up next to my face. And then I realized I saw my logo, and I'm like, oh, that's me. That's funny. I probably had a say in that wording. So here's the funny thing. Like, you could scroll down a little bit more. So unlike most perils, when it comes to flood, Rethought knows that inches matter. I have two jokes. I have one joke with that and one that's not a joke, but that hints at a joke. And what does flood risk assessment and pornography have in common? Inches matter. And then when I'm in a meeting and I feel like I can't quite say it that way, I say, I could use this as a joke against a niche element of the film industry, but I'm going to say, what does flood risk assessment and football have in common? In both, inches matter, hint, hint, So that's kind of our thing. Yeah, we completed a fundraising round, which is like,
that's awesome. God. Congrats.
Yeah. So much work, but now it was oversubscribed, which means we went out pitching for a certain amount of money, and at the end of the day, we got more investors than we thought we would get, and so we ended up raising more money than we asked for.
That's cool.
And I'm going to wait to announce the investors because I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say anything, but it is a rock solid group of investors. Like, we can basically open any door in the industry anywhere in the world at any time. Just rock solid. We have a great group of investors. Our board is solid. We had our first board meeting last week. That's why I was in California, Brett. And we're ready to go. We have a couple of initiatives that we're like that close to signing on. And I think there's going to be a big fall rollout with, the full gamut of publicity and all of that. So that's what's awesome. Been keeping me busy. That and the 6-week-old I can hear screaming downstairs. So
Yeah,
Uh,
not bored too often, I would imagine.
yeah.
And
So
then kind of, oh, sorry?
no, that's what's going on in my
Yeah,
world.
that's cool. And then you'd thrown that article too, is tied to that, the Markel Nephila. I don't
Yeah.
actually know how to pronounce that company's name, but
Nephila. So
Nephila.
yeah, so
Yeah.
Nephila is the largest ILS fund in the world,
Mm.
and ILS stands for Insurance Linked Securities. And they're what they have really cornered the market on is accessing essentially Wall Street financing.
Mm.
So hedge funds, private equity, pension funds, and what in the if you know anything about finance and investments, correlation of risk is really one of the big uh, variables that pension funds and portfolio managers look at. If you have a portfolio that's highly concentrated in things that are correlated, if you get that bad
Yeah.
market event, it hits everything, and that's a fireable offense.
That black swan.
Yeah. So what's
Yeah.
attractive to insurance is that it's non-correlated. A hurricane making landfall in Florida has nothing to do with stock market crash or problems with currencies or interest rates. So Nephila is like the number one market or the number one company in the world that's dealing in that market, and I think they're up to like 12 or 13 billion dollars by themselves of private equity, hedge fund, pension money, and those go to like cat bonds. They go to insurance derivatives and risks, financial products that are linked with insurance risk.
Kind of like the Big Short, but actually good products you can register.
Yeah, USAA. USAA created the first cat bond.
That's cool.
ResRe, I think ResRe is on like its like 100th version. And it's just a cheap form, a very inexpensive form of reinsurance. So a carrier like USAA can carve out a piece of their reinsurance and shop it in Bermuda and get very inexpensive reinsurance on that. And so Nephila controls that market. So Markel is a carrier in the United States. And what's interesting, and what I'll link, show you guys and link for you guys is Dr. Robin Kiera, who's one of the top influencers in InsurTech. He came out with a InsurTech, a LinkedIn post. It was probably months ago. Seems like weeks ago. It's hard to tell with the baby, but the gist of it was, will reinsurers take over insurers? Like, will in the stack from the customer up to the reinsurer, will the reinsurer slide down and basically knock, like a Jenga piece, knock out insurers? And I made the comment in that post. I said, I think it's easier for an insurer to become a reinsurer than for a reinsurer to become an insurer. I think it goes the other way. And what's so interesting about this transaction is that's what this transaction is. Markel, by buying Nephila, has essentially purchased a reinsurer. Now they have in the stack, except for the distribution part, they're a carrier, they're E&S, they are reinsurance, and they are capital markets. So everything above the customer, they have all the jigsaw pieces in place. What they do with it, I don't know. I don't know if Garrett has an opinion on that, but I just think we're going to see more of that as we see capital from the capital markets and reinsurance try to drill down and get as close to the customer as possible.
Yeah, I think that there's a few things that could happen with that. It's obviously a capital play in terms of a few different things. They're definitely going to diversify. Obviously now you're tied into an insurance investment versus like owning a bank. And we all know that owning a bank doesn't necessarily go very well, i.e. Wells Fargo. And obviously it makes money. Anything that you're in investments, that's the whole nature of that, is that they turn profit. I mean, if you look at a carrier like Nationwide, without their financial portion, they might not be profitable without it, or limited profitability. And so when you get a conglomerate like Markel, you're looking at, all right, we know that ENS does this, Standard Market does this, all our other operations kind of do this, and then you stack in something else, it can help them kind of get whatever that next play is, and help them level set on that capital. Even though it's an investment long term, they're going to have probably some liquid income from that.
Yep. No, it's true. Nephila is profitable. So if they just brought it in and did nothing, there's going to be a return. I don't know if it'll justify. I don't even know what the price was, but it can justify it that way. I'm assuming that they're going to look for some sort of synergy. They have Catco. So I think now their ILS funds under management is up to like $19 billion, which is like 3 times bigger than the second largest ILS fund in the world. So they basically they probably can get better economics out of that too, like higher management fees, stuff like that. So I agree with you, Garrett. I would be most interested in knowing whether they can what those synergies are that they're looking to try to accomplish, and whether they can actually accomplish those. Like, is it new products, or is it, as you said, Garrett, strictly a capital play where they can get cheap capital? It'll benefit their entire portfolio because it's they can route reinsurance through that in an inexpensive way. I don't know, but that's what I would be very eager to find out about.
And I think if there's anybody that could innovate that, Markel is definitely top of mind there. It's actually one of the companies that I wanted to work for and was in the top list of, hey, I could go to these 3. I just so happened to land with USAA, but that's what drove me to Markel is they are on the tip of the spear in innovation. I mean, so if anybody could do it, it's them.
Yeah. We should get Trent Cooksley, Brett, on here. Okay. He's the Markel digital VC guy. He's the one that's making investments on that side. But I always,
that'd be great.
To me, Markel has always been one of those companies. They're a handful. USA being one of them. Markel, Chubb. I'm drawing a blank on others, but basically companies that have created a niche or a bunch of niches, created a brand where they've really been able to leverage it in a bunch of different ways. And to me, when I was an agent, I always remember Markel being the place you went to for like antique cars and other E&S. Like they're really good at creating those little niche markets and kind of stringing them up and standing that up as their conglomerate, because I don't think they do any one thing out in the major markets that's like massive.
That's cool. That's an interesting play. And then, so I come to this from the broker side, not a ton of experience, been licensed for a few years, but don't have a great, grasp of the ecosystem. It makes sense to me that the insurance companies are kind of expanding that can connect out to the consumer. It's hard, I think, for the capital guys that connect to the insurance company come down the stack. But if you already have the network out there, you have the deal flow, that's the hard part. And then to me, it just sounds like it simplifies the structure and they get to keep more money in-house, So, yeah.
No, I agree completely. Yeah. I mean, the insurance company's in the middle, so it's easier for them to get to the edges than I think for a reinsurer on the far edge to be able to burrow down and get to the consumer. I just don't know how they do it.
Yeah, going back to like Garrett's marketing work and niches at Blue Lime that I checked out. It's hard, like learning how to set up a good distribution network, how to have contacts out there, how to draw on business. That's a challenge in and of itself. Then you got to properly cover it on the back end. So
are you guys familiar with Boost?
Yeah, Boost looks really cool. Yeah, Alex seems like a really sharp guy.
So I'm curious as to how that affects Boost. Boost was backed by Nephila. I'm sure they'll still be backed by Nephila, but does that give Boost more options? Will it be a distraction? Nephila won't be able to give it the TLC that a startup requires. There's a lot going on there, so that'll be interesting. And Nephila owns an MGA, so they own Velocity. So that's the interesting part. Like this can go in a lot of different directions, and it really matters on what kind of distribution ultimately they decide to plug in. over at Rethought, we've thought hard about ILS and how we use it, and we have a couple of strategies that we're going to try to implement to take advantage of it. So for those that thought that ILS was, and I was one of them, that these are pension people, and as soon as you get that one big event and they take a big loss, they're all going to go running for the hills. After last year, they stuck around and actually dumped more capital in. I think ILS is here to stay. I think the paradigm has officially changed. And I think if you're a reinsurer, tough days ahead unless you're one of the behemoths, because cheap form of capital, they're going to be eating away at your business.
I agree. I think you're going to see a lot of M&A in that space too. I mean, the little people are going to get swallowed up. They just don't have the power that the big brokers do, the big reinsurers.
Yep. It just sounds like such a streamlined model too, from the ILS standpoint, as opposed to like a full-on reinsurer kind of build-out cover and all that. Just sounds simpler.
Well, I mean, it is simpler. It's so straightforward. Now, over time, I think it can get more complex, but it's basically you're just carving out one peril, hurricane or earthquake, and saying, I'm going to reinsure this. And it's extremely model-centric. So I know for us at Rethought, we're model-centric MGA. It's like a marriage made in heaven for us. When we go to Bermuda, we're talking their language. So that makes a lot of sense. So that's.
I feel like it's a competitive advantage to have it based in Bermuda. Sort of like being an NFL athlete in Texas, less taxes. It's like, come out for a meeting. We're in Bermuda. It's like, all right, fine.
Yeah. Although I think that's changed. Didn't the Trump tax plan tax foreign reinsurance?
Okay.
I don't know all the rules, but I think it was trying to get more reinsurance premium back into the States.
Okay. Yeah.
So anyone that's listening, that's watching this, if you can make a comment down in the comment section, and let us know what the Bermudian tax laws are regarding reinsurance. So we're approaching the end here. And so, Garrett, I think you have a surprise for us. You wanted to show us something?
Oh, yeah.
Something pornographic.
It's football season, so you got to do a little go Broncos.
There you go.
little Elway. You can't go wrong.
The OG.
In Elway we trust.
That is pornographic. Disgusting. So I'll show mine. Number 87. I don't know if you can see the.
Oh yeah.
The greatest tight end in the history of football. And of course we have Brett with his Buffalo Bills hat. I think he's
future
always
Hall of Famer Josh Allen. They're trying not to get killed.
I think Brett is trying to become best friends with Ryan Hanley. So
who knows?
Nothing wrong with that. Okay, so why don't we end with some predictions? First, who is going to play in the Super Bowl and who's going to win? Garrett?
Oh, that's a tough one coming out the gate. As much as I want to say the Broncos, because I love the Broncos, we just don't know with the whole Keenum trade. Case Keenum coming in. I don't know what that looks like, but I think from the Patriots, it's hard to count them out. And Tom Brady's just the gamer. If you give them the ball with 2 minutes left, they're going to win. So you got to have Patriots in there. I think the NFC could be all over the map. The Eagles could be strong again, or they could just totally suck. But it's. I think that could be a dynasty rematch. So I'm going to go there. Eagles and Patriots again.
Who wins?
Patriots.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah, and I know you're just doing that because I'm the host and you want to make me feel good.
No, I really
never count them out.
I love when the Broncos beat the Patriots, but hey, we'll hold our breath. We'll see how this year goes.
What say you, Brett?
I think maybe Pats and Rams all the way there, and then old guns versus young guys. And usually in playoff situations, old guys tend to do pretty good. So not trying to pander to the host, pandering to Hanley and Lamparelli in a single statement. But Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting to see what the Rams have. It's nice having an underpaid quarterback, which the Pats have going for them too. So anytime, we talk about resource allocation, spreading your money around intelligently, those are two good situations to be in.
Yeah, yeah. I don't see how the Eagles are going to struggle this year. I don't think they're going to make it. It's so hard to get back to the Super Bowl because every game you play is the other team's Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw that with Atlanta, like on the road, like and Atlanta should have won that game. I just see NFC East too difficult. I agree. I like the Rams. Defensively they're top notch. Yep. Quarterback's good running game. They have all the pieces there. I think that's the team that steps up this year. And I'm only picking the Patriots, not because I'm a homer. Just because I feel like the AFC is a lot weaker.
Yeah.
And the Patriots just happen to be in AFC East, which is such a terrible division. It's basically like you can count on them going 5-1, and that's such a huge advantage.
Yeah.
When you don't have to go through like killer teams like Denver, like San Diego's good this year.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And then you have like Kansas City every single year, and in the middle, like the AFC South is pretty garbage. And then the AFC North or whatever it is with Pittsburgh, Baltimore is much better this year. Cleveland will be better. I just think the Patriots will get home field advantage, and that's all they need. They kind of peak at the end. And in football, it's you just get into the playoffs, get in, get the bye. So you skip that game, stay healthy, and then kind of let everything fall into place. Patriots, Rams. The Rams. Unfortunately, I just think they're just like really primed now. They remind me of Philadelphia last year, except they're not flying as much under the radar. So there you go. So kill me, shoot me, whatever. So Garrett, awesome having you on for a conversation. Best of luck at USAA. You're welcome to come on anytime. And yeah, kill it.
Yeah, I'm loving the conversation. Thanks for having me, you guys. Look forward to doing this again.
Awesome. Awesome. And Brett, as per usual, thank you.
Absolutely, sir. Well, talk to you soon, and it was a lot of fun hanging not too long ago.
Yeah. We'll do it again. So to everyone that's watching, thanks for listening. Until next time.
See you guys.